Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and for today's video I'm going to be showing you the 10 books that I managed to read in the month of July. So July was a time I cancelled 2 videos, both of the ones that I had teased in my TBR video, so that's embarrassing. I read a surprising amount considering one of the reading experiences I had throughout July, which I will get into, but I read 10 books. So the first book that I read in the month of July was not The Witch You Wed by April Asher. This is an adult romance urban fantasy. We have dual perspective for this. We follow Violet and Lincoln. Violet is a magicless witch, but also the daughter of probably the most prolific witch family there is, so that's fun. Lincoln is the alpha wolf shifter of a pack. They have a history and it didn't end well. So Violet's sister is getting married. Because it's such a big important deal in the supernatural world, Lincoln ends up back in her life, which she's less than impressed about because she doesn't really like him at the moment. Moving right along, both of them have to choose a mate. A mate is basically your partner for life. Violet is being forced by arcane supernatural laws to find someone to witch bond with, and Lincoln, in order to keep his alpha status, has to find a mate by his 30th birthday? 31st birthday? And so they agree to help each other out by fake dating, even fake mating, to buy themselves some time. But obviously, especially because they have a history, that doesn't go very well and they end up developing some feelings for each other. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I found it quite a fun, fast read. I love reading supernatural romance stories, so finding one that was an adult romance was just, I needed it. I know there's a sequel coming out next year. It's been announced. I'm excited about it. I want to read it. This was quite fun. I enjoyed it. The conflict in this book is much like most romance books, very much miscommunication centered, and that does kind of drive me nuts, but I did still enjoy it. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, I've forgotten a lot of my feelings on this book. Like, I know I liked it and want to read the next one, but like the in-depth thoughts that I had on this, the reason why I gave it a 4 and not a 5, couldn't tell you. Couldn't remember. July has been a very long month for me, but I did enjoy this and I would recommend it if you're interested in romance or paranormal romance specifically. It's a good one. So I read this month. I'm clearly doing great right now. It's fine. Next up, I read The Rules and Regulations for Mediating Myths and Magic by F.T. Lukens. This book follows a boy named Bridger who's in high school and he gets a job as kind of like an assistant to this guy, and the job is really weird. He has to like scale the side of the building and go in through the like roof for the interview, and there's mysterious people coming and going and like weird stuff happening that doesn't really make any sense, but he overlooks it because, you know, it's his first job and he thinks the pay's pretty good, so why not. He's also struggling because he has a crush on this guy who moved across the road, and weird things are kind of happening, and then he is dragged under Lake Michigan by some mermaids in front of said crush, and he can't really know what's going on after that. Turns out that his new boss is kind of like a intermediary person who's supposed to keep the peace between the supernatural world and the real world so that the real world never finds out about the supernatural world, and things are going a little nuts right now. So Bridger ends up helping out with this whole thing, but it's also about his own personal growth. He's only starting to understand his own sexuality. He didn't know he liked guys at all until Leo moved in across the road, and he's having this whole like crisis and he doesn't know how to tell people if he's gay. Like, he doesn't even know if that's the right word for him. His best friend, she pissed me off a lot in this in regards to that, but it was fun. This book definitely gave me like Teen Wolf vibes and I really enjoyed it. I did only give this a 4 star as opposed to the other F.T. Lukens books that I've read that I both gave 5 stars, so I didn't think this was quite as good as those ones, but it definitely still had the same kind of sense of humor, and I really love the characters that F.T. Lukens writes. I think they are so funny and witty, but also they make me feel. This author is definitely a new favorite author for me. me, and I definitely want to read more from them in the future. The next book I read, I actually have an entire video on, so if you want an in-depth review, I will link it in the cards above. But that was Breaking Time by Sasha Ellsberg. I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. We follow a girl from modern day Scotland and a guy from 1500 Scotland. He is pulled forward in time into modern day, and he wants to protect this girl because it turns out she's a pillar of time, as was the guy's best friend back in the 1500s who just got murdered. It's like a whole thing. That was an awful synopsis. I'm so sorry. Please watch my other video to find out what this is actually about. Again, my brain is very scattered right now, and I read this a while ago. I thought this was okay. Parts of it I really enjoyed. Parts of it I thought could use a bit more development. Again, if you want full detailed thoughts, I have a whole review video for this. The next book I read, and the worst book I read this month, Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales by the Brothers Grimm. I am so disappointed in this book. I gave it 1 star. I thought I was going to love it. I genuinely thought I was going to love this book, and then I very did not. I've read fairy tale collections in the past. I've read both Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale collection and Aesop's Fables. You know, I know what reading a fairy tale collection is like, but this was just so boring. I feel bad saying it, but god damn, this book was genuinely one of the most repetitive things I've ever read in my entire life. This is like 600 and something pages. There are 200 stories in here. If we cut out all the stories that are word for word repeating previous stories, it'd probably be like 100 pages. I must have read the plot at least 6 times, and like the first couple pages, the first parts of the stories are all different, but then they all devolve into this same odd, specifically strange plot, word for word the same. Like, how unoriginal. They had a somewhat original idea, so they wrote it 15 million times. I've never been more frustrated trying to read a book. And I was so disappointed because for years I've wanted to read this and thought I would really enjoy it, especially because I actually kind of liked Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales when I read that. This also has a lot of sexist and racist stories, but again, most fairy tale collections do that. I can't fully make that a this book's problem. I can collectively make that a white people of the past problem. So I'm getting worked up because this book sucked and I'm upset about it. And I said this to my friend when I was reading this. I said, people say these are gruesome and like horrifying and like, oh my god, children shouldn't read these things, but they're so boring that even the like gruesome side of things, just, I don't care. I need to put it down. I don't want to talk about it anymore. After that disaster, I wanted to read something light and fun, and so I picked up Once Upon a K-Prom by Kat Cho. I loved this. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. One thing I will say is that when I talked about this book in my TBR, I said I thought it was set in South Korea. That is incorrect. It takes place in America. We follow 2 protagonists in this. So we have Elena, who is just your average teenage Korean American. Her school is coming up to prom, but she's not really that interested in it. She is a lot more focused on this community center that she volunteers at. And the only person she would have wanted to go to prom with anyway was her old friend Robbie, who was her best friend before he moved away back to Korea and became a star of a K-pop band. They did make a promise to each other when he moved away that he would come back and they would go to prom together. In a twist of events, he knocks on her door one day and says, hey, can we go to prom together? And she's like, what? So it's kind of the rekindling of their friendship, but also like, oh, it's so cute. Okay, leave me alone. I have discovered that I really enjoy reading books about famous people. I really loved XOXO by Axie O, which also features a K-pop member. I also really enjoyed If This Gets Out by Sophie Gonzalez and Cale Dietrich, which features 2 boys in a boy band, an American boy band this time. But I really like this dynamic. I don't know why, but I really enjoyed this. I love this cover as well. I've shown you guys this so many times, but ain't that cool? Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think the characters were really well written. It was interesting to see the family aspect of this book, because this book does talk about some of the expectations placed on Korean children. The next 4 books that I read, I gave every single one 4 out of 5 stars, and they are volumes 15 through 18 of the Promised Neverland manga. The story is by Kayushi Ray, and the art is by Posuke Demizu. I'm sure that's not how you say any of those names, but I tried. So we have volume 15, which is called Welcome to the Entrance. 16 is called Lost Boy. 17 is called The Imperial Capital Battle. And 18 is called Never Be Alone. So I read these. If you watched my 2021 year in books video, you know I read the first 14 volumes last year, and I've been wanting to continue on with it since then, but I couldn't find volume 15 anywhere, and now I can't find volume 19. I'm 2 books from the end. It's a 20 book manga series, so I've read most of it now. This is the only manga I've ever read, by the way. We follow a group of kids who were raised in Gracefield House, and then one day they find out that actually this house is just a fancy looking farm, because actually they're on a meat farm for demons who eat human flesh, and you know, human flesh tastes the best when you're a child. So they escape, and it's all about them against the demons and trying to get free and trying to get all of humanity free. It's so interesting. This series is such, like, it's so allegorical towards like the actual meat industry in the world that we live in, but it's also interesting as an examination of humanity and how people treat each other, and how the way you're treated impacts the way you want to treat other people, the value of hope and kindness versus the impacts of fear and anger. I also really like the art style. But yes, I'm very glad that I was finally able to read some more of this manga, and I want to finish it. And then the final book I actually finished reading in the month of July, which made me sob, was Naughts and Crosses by Mallory Blackman. This book is set in present day of when this came out. This came out in 2001, but it's like an alternate history thing where Africa was the continent that colonized the world as opposed to England and Europe. So racism is flipped, basically. We have a race of people called the Naughts, those are the white people, and a race of people called the Crosses, those are the people of color, and the Crosses are by far superior in society. In the society in this book, they are treated superiorly to the Naughts, because this book is like a commentary on racism. I found it very interesting that this book, oh by the way, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I found it very interesting the way this book depicted racism, because it needed to have the emotional impact of all of the awful things throughout history that have happened to black people, but like in 300 pages. It kind of blended elements of like the 50s and 60s and current day. I'm not saying that people aren't this racist now, because they are. What I'm saying is this book, a huge plot point of this book is that for the first time ever, a group of like 4 Naught students were going to a cross school. So in that sense, it's a little bit more reflective of like the 60s and 70s. I found this book absolutely heartbreaking. We follow dual perspective once more. We have Callum and we have Sephi. Sephi is a cross whose father is actually a politician. Callum is a Naught whose mother used to work for Sephi's family. So Sephi and Callum have kind of known each other their whole lives, and they stayed friends. And so they are from opposite ends of this struggle between the Naughts and Crosses. Sephi's about to turn 14 at the start of this book. Callum is already 15. So they're a couple years apart in age, but they want to be friends, and they actually kind of want to be more than friends, but the entire world is just not okay with that as a concept, and they have to deal with so much crap all the time. And it is just, it's so sad. A lot happens in this book. It's genuinely so sad. The society in this book is trying to drive these two to be enemies. They don't want to be enemies with each other, but it is so hard when they are constantly made so angry by the things that they have to go through. This book, I can see why it's one I think a lot of people had to read in school. I can see why you'd be able to write some really good essays about this book. People who typically don't enjoy YA would probably still get some value out of this. I think the characters' ages is almost integral to the way this book depicts certain things and the way it handles certain emotions and feelings. I think because the younger you are, the more blatant you are with your feelings and your understandings of things, it has a stronger impact. It's sad, and I cried. So that's everything I actually managed to finish this month. There are a couple other books that I do want to briefly mention though. So one of the videos that I cancelled was reading To Paradise by Hanya Yanagihara in 24 hours. I had filmed a good handful of hours and I'd read 216 pages and then I fell asleep for 9.5 hours. And when I woke up, I did not feel good. So I cancelled that video. But I did start this book. I am actually going to put it down and put it aside. I don't feel mentally up for the challenge of reading this right now. I did enjoy what I read of this so far, but I am putting this aside for a moment. Not because I'm not liking it, I'm loving it, but because I am too tired right now to even contemplate reading this book. We're gonna put it back on my TBR and pick it up hopefully later this year. And the other book that I'm gonna mention, I'm just shoving into next month because I did start reading this a couple days ago and I didn't get very far because I had just finished the Noughts and Crosses and my brain was short-circuiting. But that was Reflection by Elizabeth Lim. This is the next book in the Disney Twisted Tales thing. It's a spin on Mulan where she has to go to the underworld. I haven't even reached that point yet. I'm on page 21, but I want to read this book, god damn it. So I will keep reading it. So I just wanted to mention those two books because, I don't know, it felt necessary. But that's it for the month of July. That's what I read. That's what I thought of it. That's how everything went down. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you've read any of these books, please let me know what you thought of them, or if you have any recommendations for books you think I would enjoy. I love hearing from you guys, so please leave comments. I love all the comments. Please do subscribe if you want to see more from me. I post a video every single week. So yes, there's definitely more coming. But otherwise, that's it from me today, and I hope to see you next time in a new video. Bye!